Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. Last week I put up a video called Patients, Customers, and Zen Students. And based on some of the comments I saw on that video and some of the response I got by email, I feel like I might have given some people the impression that I think all Zen teachers or all Buddhist teachers in America treat all of their students as if they are patients or customers all of the time. I didn't mean to suggest that, and that's not what I was suggesting, and I'm sorry if I gave that impression. So I'm going to try to correct that a little bit today and see where we go. The problem, I think, is more of an institutional problem than a problem on the individual level. The problem of teachers on the individual level treating their students as patients, that's something that happens kind of on the individual level, and I think it's kind of based on one very widespread misunderstanding of what Buddhism is. But it's also something that I think operates more on the level of an institutional level. God, my grammar is terrible. So the thing about institutions, and this is just based on my kind of eyeball view of going and hanging out at a lot of Zen institutions in America for the last 10 or 20 years, is I feel like institutions will sometimes behave as if they are their own entity, as if they are their own person, that has a specific personality, specific opinions, specific wants and needs of its own, just like it's a person. And people tend to treat the institution, I think unconsciously, as if it's a person. So you can get into situations where, again, this is not based on research, but this is based on my kind of eyeball view of things. But it seems to me you can get into a situation in which 100% every single member, every individual member of the institution disagrees with some policy or some action of the institution, and yet 100% all of the people, all of the members of that institution think that the institution, that this policy or this action is good for the institution, and they all think that everybody else, everybody except them in the institution agrees with it. So they go along with it even though they feel that it's wrong. And this is especially, big institutions are especially susceptible to this. And it's difficult to run any sort of a Zen center in the United States without ending up, at least to some degree, treating your students, treating the people who come there as customers. Because, okay, let me just give you my own personal example of this. When I ran I don't know if I ran it, but when I was supposedly the head of a Zen center in Los Angeles, not the Zen Center of Los Angeles, by the way, it wasn't that one, that's somebody else. But anyway, when I was running a Zen center in Los Angeles, not the Zen Center of Los Angeles, I swear to God, every meeting I went to, I made a point of saying that we are not trying to grow this institution. We are never trying to make this institution bigger or more popular or get more people into it. We are doing what we're doing because of a totally different purpose. And I didn't mind doing sort of advertising or public outreach to let people know that we existed, because I thought that was a problem. People didn't even know we existed. Meaning people who might be interested in coming here anyway didn't know that there was a place they could come to study Zen. But what I didn't want is what I saw other Buddhist institutions in Los Angeles doing. There was one in particular, I don't know their name, but they would put flyers out just in various places that I used to pick up here and there, like record stores or bookstores and things like that. I don't know, just different places. Where they'd be like, let's see, Are you interested in knowing your true purpose in life? Do you want to get rid of depression and anxiety? So they were trying to advertise to try to bring in more customers. And I said, we're not going to do that. And I had to say this. It felt to me like I had to say it 3 or 4 times at every meeting. And even so, we would still try to keep bringing in customers. And it finally, I'll leave the specific straw that broke the camel's back, the one thing that I just couldn't go with among many other things. aside for the moment. But there came a point where I was just like, no, I'm not going to be part of this institution that is focused on doing things that are going to make it grow or make it seem popular or palatable for the people, that doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing. Now, having said all of that, my main point that I wanted to make is not every Buddhist group in America, not every Zen group in America is treating their people, the people that come to the place, as customers or patients. And to illustrate this, I want to just talk about one single person, because I think that's a way to do it. And this person happens to have passed away a couple of months ago, who I thought was a really good example of somebody who did not do this. And that is Zuo Reading. Zuo is a Dharma name, and I actually... So I'm doing this from memory, and I'm doing it deliberately. I deliberately did not look up anything about Zuo before doing this video, because I want what I say in this video to come from my sincere memory of her and my interactions with her, rather than what I'm reading. So I used to know Zuo's birth name, but I've forgotten it now. Zuo is a Dharma name. And she studied in Japan with a teacher, I believe it might be Aoyama Roshi. I'm probably getting this wrong. But it was a female, a woman Zen teacher in Japan who was very well known for being a kind of a stickler for protocol. Like wearing the correct robes, doing all the correct actions, and doing all the stuff, all the real sort of Zen stuff that they do in Japan. So she'd gone over there at some point in her life and studied with this person, and become a transmitted Dharma heir of this person. And she was older, although she shaved her head all the time, which tends to make people, it's hard to judge somebody's age when they have a shaved head, so they don't have any gray hair at all, or any hair. So I didn't know her precise age, but I could guess it because she told me once that she had been a classmate of Janis Joplin. Like, she was originally from Texas. Port Arthur, I guess, is where Janis Joplin went to high school. So she'd gone to high school with Janis Joplin. She said she didn't know Janis very well, but she knew her. She was like somebody, it was a very small high school, so everybody knew everybody. So she'd had some interactions with Janis. She wasn't her best friend or anything. So she was old enough that she went to high school with Janis Joplin. I met her, I believe the first time I met her was when I was invited by her friend Tonen O'Connor, who's another female Zen teacher who's still alive, who plies her trade out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'd known Tonen earlier, and Tonen was doing this retreat called The Great Sky, where it was an unusual sesshin. Sesshin is an intensive Zen practice for either 3 or 5 or 7 days. These happen to be 7 days. And the sesshin, instead of having just one transmitted teacher, was going to have, I think, 4 or was it 5 transmitted teachers. See, my memory is terrible. And I was going to be one of them, and Zuo Reading was one of them. And she was the one who impressed me the most. She ran a Zen center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, called the Cedar Rapids Zen Center, I think. And she was from Texas, so I don't know how she ended up in Cedar Rapids. But I was impressed by that, because people who want to become famous, popular Zen teachers don't go to places like Cedar Rapids or Akron, Ohio, Kent, Ohio, where I met my first Zen teacher. So a lot of the Zen teachers who are the really good ones are the people you probably never heard of, because they tend not to write books. They tend not to do dumb YouTube videos like me. You know, they don't do retreats that attract hundreds of people and have this kind of name and fame in the world of spiritual teachers. They tend to be obscure people. That's not to say that everybody you might have heard of is terrible, because it's not. That's not what I'm implying. But the ones that I like the best tend to be people who are not like me. They're not writing books. They're not being famous. They're not out there doing their things. And they're people you probably haven't heard of. And I say this, it is kind of ironic. This morning when I checked my email, one of my emails was from somebody who was asking me if I could recommend a Zen place to study in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So Yeah, I can. I assume that, I don't know if Zuiko had a Dharma heir, but I assume she left somebody in charge of her place and that it's still running. So that's a good place to go if you're in Cedar Rapids. In general, it's you don't ask me those questions. I mean, you can, and I'll do my best to answer them. But in general, I don't know who's, if you mention a town, and say, do you know any good Zen teachers there? I probably don't, because I don't know. It's just whoever I happen to run across. But Zuiko was great because she wasn't trying to grow a center. She wasn't trying to become famous. She wasn't trying to, do something big. She was just very committed to this practice and very committed to making it happen wherever she could make it happen. And I guess that happened to be Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Like I say, I don't know how she ended up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. There's probably a story there. That's the mail. Ziggy's barking at the mail. Ziggy, it's the mail. Don't worry about it. It's the mail. We'll go check. Okay? It's okay. It's the mail. I'll talk to you about Ziggy at the end of this video. Anyway, so there are lots of teachers like Zuiko out there. And like I say, you just don't know about them, and you just haven't heard of them. How to find them, I don't know. In my FAQ section, which is in, hardcorezen.info/FAQ, I did one of my essays about how to find Zen teachers, and I don't remember what I said there, but I think I said something like Google is your friend. You just gotta look for them. And the other thing is somebody asked me, like, there's no Zen in where I live. There's only Theravada. Well, go see your Theravada teacher. I'm not one of these people that claims that my tradition is the only tradition. For me, it's the only tradition. For me, it's the best tradition and the only tradition. But a lot of that has to do with the actual individual people I met who became my teachers, like Tim and like Gudo Nishijima Roshi. I almost said Genpo Roshi. Anyway, Nishijima Roshi. It was their personality that got me into it. And the fact that they were both teachers in the Soto Zen tradition told me something about maybe that tradition is cool. But I don't believe that the Soto Zen tradition is somehow without its faults. In fact, I think there's a lot of faults within the Soto Zen tradition, a lot of them. And most of the Soto Zen institutions are terrible. I mean, they're maybe not the worst in the world. They might be slightly better than, I don't know, the Vatican or something like that. But the institutions I've seen in Japan that are the big Soto Zen institutions, and the institutions I've seen in America that are the big Soto Zen institutions in America, they are trying their best to be the Vatican, which I think is just, why? Why are you imitating the worst organization in the world, the most corrupt, terrible? I don't know, maybe they're not the most corrupt and most terrible, but they're pretty corrupt and pretty terrible, and you're trying to use those as your model. Really? Honestly? You haven't thought this through, I guess. Anyway, sorry for the tirade there. But my point is, there's Zuo Reading type teachers all over this country. And it's an amazing time and a wonderful time to be a student of this stuff. And not all of the great teachers that you might encounter are of the Soto Zen tradition. They might be in any tradition. You might find a Presbyterian minister who is deeply, deeply enlightened. Go out and look. Go out and see who are the rabbis, who are the Presbyterian ministers, who's that guy who sits in the coffee shop all day and seems to have something to him and he's not affiliated with anything at all. Those might be your teachers. So you don't have to fixate on this one little narrow thing for what you want. And again, they're not all bad. It's just a kind of an institutional tendency that I was remarking on. And there are even people within those big institutions who are kind of in a clandestine way kind of fighting against them and trying to do something different and trying to go a different way, but who still operate within those big institutions. You can find those people too. So even if the institution has a strong push to treat everybody like a customer or like a patient, You might find somebody who's part of that institution who completely disagrees with that approach and who does it differently, but who, for whatever reason of their own, wants to operate within those institutions. Sometimes there are things that the institutions like that can provide that a independent person like myself or like Zuiko or somebody like that just can't. Like Zuiko couldn't have started a Tassajara, like a Zen monastery that's 24/7 Zen monastery and has all the bells and whistles and stuff. You just can't do that as an independent. So some people want to work with those institutions because of the resources they offer them, even if they disagree with the institutions. So there you go. I think that was long and convoluted and probably confusing, but I'm just going to leave it there for now and tell you thank you for watching me. And if you want to contribute to what I do, to me making more confusing and convoluted videos, you can go to the links I've provided in the YouTube description below, which if you're watching this on YouTube is right below my face. And it's got links to my Patreon and PayPal accounts. Or if you don't like to do that, you can go to the URL that you're seeing on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you can also find my PayPal and Patreon accounts links. And those are my main ways of making a living, and I appreciate your support. But as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. All right, I'm going to go. We'll see you next time. Have a good time all the time. All right, there's Ziggy, and I told you I would tell you. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but he's got a little sort of gauze bandage around one of his paws, his left back paw, because apparently he stepped on a thorn. It looks like it might have gotten infected. We're treating him right now with home treatments, and we're supposed to take him into a vet on Friday if he doesn't look any better after our home treatments. So he's not feeling so great. Actually, he seems to be okay other than the boo-boo on his foot. He has an appetite and he has energy, but right now he doesn't, because he does this when I make a video. He just sits there and sleeps. I think it's maybe soothing to him to hear me just talking to you guys. All right, there's Ziggy. Bye, Ziggy.